My name is Chloe Cole, and I am an 18-year-old detransitioner I'm from here in California, but I live in the Central Valley area, like kind of in the the Stockton area. But I'm here to tell my story and what I've learned from living through and eventually waking up from my own personal hell. Many of you are parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and grandparents to a generation that is uniquely vulnerable. There's a serious disconnect between Gen Z and older people, and I feel like that's due in part to a lack of trust and understanding between those two parties. I speak in hopes of bridging the gap and educating the older generations of what is really going on with the younger generations. This is a critical period in time when we need understanding and compassion because our youth are in grave danger. The advent of the internet and social media have completely changed the way that children grow up. And with the internet came atrocities that we are still learning about today. I am a formerly trans-identified kid. I fell victim to the idea that I, as a girl, could go on to become a boy if I so wished. At the age of 12, I began to cut my hair short and buy boys' clothing, and I asked my friends to refer to me as a boy and my family to refer to me as their son, their nephew, and their brother. It's important to note that I have a very supportive family. Both my parents are in the picture, and I'm the youngest of very many siblings. I wasn't abused. I'm not just some corner case. My childhood started off overall pretty normal. When you think of like a stereotypical little girl, you'll probably be thinking of me because I loved girly colors like pink and purple, and I loved wearing skirts and dresses and necklaces and playing with dolls. And to this day, I still love drawing. I admit that growing up with so many brothers kind of rubbed off on me a little bit because I also loved playing video games, playing in the dirt, and stealing my older brother's Legos, Nerf guns, and toy trucks. As I got older, I started to associate with and relate more to the boys because I just found it more and more difficult to relate to or even understand all the other girls my age. We used to call this being a tomboy, and there is nothing wrong with this. I really wish I knew that when I started puberty when I was only 9. So from a very young age, I dealt with both my peers and the adults around me making uncomfortable, if not sometimes hurtful comments on my developing body. I moved between neighborhoods before entering middle school, and I had so few friends that I just turned to the internet. Little did I know that as soon as I made my first Instagram account at 11, the algorithm would just bombard me with LGBTQ content, and especially like trans-identifying kids, like ages 12 to 19, unachievable body standards for women, and even softcore porn. Unfortunately, the things that I saw on social media did not just extend to imagery. The algorithms on social media like Instagram and Tumblr and Twitter easily pigeonhole people into echo chambers, and children are not equipped to realize what is going on. I was captured by woke ideologies before I even realized that there was such a thing. One of the most damaging aspects of these ideologies would be feminism, which used to be about empowering women and understanding that we're powerful in ways that men could not even begin to imagine. It used to be about the idea that we aren't just stereotypes and that we can make our own future and deserve not just a place in the world, but to be leaders in it. And the so-called intersectional feminism of today has just completely thrown these ideas out the window. This new destructive approach to feminism has washed over the footsteps of heroes like Sojourner Truth and is actively degrading the rights and safety of children. Intersectional feminism does not only that, but it also infringes upon the rights of others and has devolved into what is essentially a men's rights movement. I have a feeling that not a single woman in here wants to see a man in a wig and dress using our restrooms and lockers. But these are all ideas that I was unknowingly indoctrinating myself into at just 11 years old. I think that any girl that age would despise growing into a woman if that was her idea of womanhood. And so I decided that I wanted out, and the internet taught me that there was, in fact, a way out. I left a letter to my parents on the dining room table, telling them that I am no longer their daughter, but instead I am their son now. They had no idea what to do. They loved me, and they wanted to support me. So they did what most parents do when their child is suffering from a mental health issue. They sought professional help. And this turned out to be the biggest mistake that they made, because these weren't doctors. They were liars. I was not suicidal, but my doctors did not hesitate to coerce them into medicalizing me with cross-sex hormones, and they cited faulty suicide statistics that didn't sound like anything scientific. They asked them a very simple question: would you rather have a live son or a dead daughter? The first endocrinologist who I was referred to was hesitant to put me on puberty blockers because he said he was concerned for how that might affect my brain development going on. My so-called gender specialist expressed frustration at this and referred me to another who immediately affirmed me and prescribed me blockers and cross-sex hormones when I was only 13. Imagine telling a 13-year-old girl, "Are you aware that you may experience atrophy of the reproductive organs?" If you believe that a girl who thinks that she's trapped in the wrong body can provide informed consent to this, you need to lose your license to medicine. I wasn't able to understand that this decision would permanently impact my overall health, and I still don't know if I'm going to be able to carry a baby. I wore a compression device called a chest binder for about 2 years. It compressed my breasts into my ribcage so hard that I have been left with permanent dents in my ribcage. I wanted to stop wearing this while swimming, exercising, or walking home in 100-degree weather because, I live in the middle of California. It gets super hot during the summer and fall. But I wanted to look like all the boys my age. I didn't want to have these breasts anymore. So my surgeon, or really my butcher, removed my healthy breasts when I was only 15. I was 15 years old, and not a single medical professional questioned this. And they say that this is the way to progress. Without realizing it, I started to grieve over my breast and my feminine form that was permanently lost. I didn't realize what this emotion was because first, everybody around me knew me as Leo now, and I'd been transitioning for so long. I was in it for 3 years by this point, if not longer. And I no longer looked like a girl. I no longer had any breasts. I started developing squarish features and a lot of muscle because I was on testosterone. And I just assumed that the emotional turmoil was just a part of the post-op period. But it wasn't. I progressively got worse. My grade performance and my attendance at school were at an all-time low during my last 2 years of high school, and I ended up dropping out several times until I ended up just getting a diploma equivalent. It wasn't until the second semester of my junior year, about 11 months after my surgery, that I began to realize just the weight of what I had done to myself. I was learning about child psychology and the role that things like physical contact and even breastfeeding play in the bond between mother and child, and how that bond goes on to affect their later cognitive and social development. Before this point in time, I hardly ever thought about how looking kids might look like for me because, I was a kid. I was 15 when I went under the knife. But during these lessons, I realized that not only was my ability to naturally feed my children taken away from me, I might not even be able to naturally birth my children. And that was just horrifying to me. And that was when the illusion fell apart. I was, and always will be, female. The next question would be, what can we do about this? I believe that this is a spiritual battle that needs to be fought with love and understanding. I have many detransition friends who have been failed by religious institutions. Some people have come at this issue with hatred, but there is no room for that. If you want to help these kids, love will always triumph. So you have to love people who are struggling with this without affirming the delusion. I've met many parents with children who are struggling with this social contagion. To many, this feels like just a completely hopeless situation. There's parents out there who have lost custody of their children because they refuse to affirm their child's transgender identity. But the biggest reason that it's gotten to this point in the first place is because many of us were just unaware of what was going on. And we need to all be aware. We need to keep tabs on politics, and especially local and state level politics and legislature. Parents and caretakers need to keep a close eye on their children and make sure that they are involved in your community and that they're active in sports or hobbies. The next step would be to educate our community in helping these kids without ostracizing them and making them feel left out. I've met a lot of transgender people and detransitioners who have been failed by Christian family members and churches. And many of those same people shot me down when I told them that I was speaking at a church. I think Christians need to do better in this regard. I think we all know this. I will continue to spread my message to all who will hear it. I've started an organization called Detrans United. It's a coalition of people who are in my situation, detransitioners, and who want to do activism against the institutions and ideology that peddle this barbaric practice. We are going up against trans activists with millions of followers and huge sponsors like Amazon, but the tide is visibly starting to shift. I'm really proud of what we've managed to accomplish so far. Vanderbilt University in Tennessee has recently stopped all of their transgender surgeries on minors. It's clear that we are winning, and I'll be in this fight until no more children are being transitioned and subject to medical experimentation. Thank you.